Good evening and welcome to another Sports Weekly special. Now, back in the 1980s, racism was endemic in football throughout the country. Today, thankfully, we have moved on a very long way. Thanks to the likes of Show Racism the Red Card and Kick It Out. And today, I'm joined by Paul Mortimer, the professional player engagement manager from Kick It Out. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Neil. Thank you.
So, you were a player back in the 80s.
Yes, late 80s.
Late 80s. Well, 86 is when I think you made your debut for Villa.
Yeah.
So, could you tell us a little bit about what it was like to actually be a player, looking at those terraces with the problems that were going on then?
Well, I was also a fan.
Sure.
So I grew up around stadiums and what have you, and it was the norm. If you consider outside the stadium, that kind of behaviour was an acceptable norm. You know, there were areas where I lived in Shepherd's Bush where you had to stay out of, because I was a black guy. So it was something I was very much accustomed to. But once you get on the pitch and it's sort of all pointed at you or focused on you, it becomes a very different sort of situation to deal with. Because if you consider, for me, in the late 80s and through the 90s when I played, you could experience, I can remember games where I experienced it from the crowd, from the opponents, from my teammates, back to the crowd, and that's all in one game. So, wow. You know, at 20, 21, 19, 21, 22, having to deal with stuff like that is, and then after the game, on your way home or something like that, I mean, I can remember being stopped by the police on the way home from a game. So there's a lot that you had to contend with.
Wow. Was that really that prevalent back in the 80s and 90s? Because obviously players around that time, I think that, you know, the big names that people knew about, there were people like Cyril Regis and Brendan Batson and John Barnes to a certain extent. Was that the same across the board, or was it just because you were in London?
Well, I've got to say, I mean, when I played, I've got to say, I think people like John Barnes, Cyril and Brendan were way after me. I can remember when I played at Charlton, I think Garth Crooks was coming to the end of his career, so people like Garth were playing, and John Barnes and people like that. Paul Ince was starting around the same age. So, yeah, it was an acceptable norm. That's the way it was seen. It was seen as banter more than anything else. And that word that people don't like to use. It was seen as banter, and because you were a minority, you know, often I'd be the only player. Right. If a joke did come up, it was seen as a joke. It wasn't seen as a joke for me, right? But the general consensus in the room was it was just a little bit of a joke, a little bit of a banter, sure. and you're expected to accept that, to be to deal with it and accept it, to be accepted by everyone else. So did that affect you?
Oh,
of course it did, because you had a choice to make. For me, I didn't like it from the start, so I was always seen slightly differently. Chip on my shoulder, trouble and stuff like that. Literally, just because I was standing up for myself. And, you know, my parents had come from Jamaica, and things had been tough for them, but the one thing they taught us as kids is to stand up for ourselves. Yeah. Now, they didn't teach us when and how to do it, so I did get into a lot of fights when I was a kid, sure. Because that's the only, I'm self-taught how to deal with it. Yeah. But I wouldn't change that, because it's made me who I am. And you know, when I do go and educate people, I always try and help them to find a way to stand up for themselves. Yeah. You know, and the best way is to educate themselves.
Now, you played at Aston Villa, Charlton Athletic, Crystal Palace. Now, they're three clubs that have had a history of black players.
Yes.
Was that probably a reason for you to go to those clubs, or was it just the way it worked out?
To be honest, it was just the way it worked out. And funnily enough, when I did go, I mean, you know, I was at Villa in 1990, there were 7 or 8 black players. Right. Charlton, there were always loads. Yeah. Palace, there were loads. Yeah. It's just something. Even I went on loan to Brentford, I played for Bristol City, black players. There were just loads, and it wasn't an issue. What changed was obviously the times. Yeah. You know, mid-90s, 2000s. As time went on, black players became more and more prevalent, and to the point where the top players, the most important players in a team, were black or of ethnic minority. So, and then all of a sudden, what happened was more black and ethnic minority fans would come and watch. Yeah. So the whole thing sort of mushroomed and became more acceptable based on the abilities. Yeah. More than anything of the black and ethnic minority players.
I seem to remember, you know, at Tottenham it was Garth Crooks was the focus. At Watford, Luther Blissett was the focus. That's right. And as you say, as we moved into the late 90s, the black players were the focus, and suddenly, you know, there were more foreign players coming in. Yep. Now, so you're professional player engagement manager at Kick It Out. Yeah. So what does that actually mean, Paul?
Well, it does what it says on the tin. Yeah. My job is to engage with the players in as many ways as possible. So we will deal with players from all ages, from the scholars. So we have initiatives. One's called Equality Inspires or Life Skills.
Yep.
Equality Inspires is through the Premier League. Life Skills is through the English Football League, where we go in and talk to the scholars. For the Premier League, it's from the under-9s all the way up to the under-21s, parents and coaches of the academy. For the English Football League, it's scholars, it's the under-18s. So it's a huge undertaking.
Wow.
And we have a group of tutors, along with myself and my colleague Troy Townsend, who go in and educate. First of all, go and listen to the players first, because we don't come down from the mountain to preach and tell them they should be doing this or they shouldn't be doing that. What we tend to talk about is the impact that it has on them, not understanding certain things around, around discrimination. And for I think a lot of people think discrimination is just racism. Yeah. And we try to talk to them about the other protected characteristics around sexism, homophobia. Sexism and homophobia are huge issues in football at the moment. And the best way to improve education is to talk about it. So what we try to do is encourage the young players to talk about it.
Amazing. So do you have sessions purely with the boys or purely with the parents, or do the parents actually get involved as well?
Well, for the scholars, the parents will have their own session, and that's just around their own behaviour.
Sure.
A lot of it is about recognising your own behaviour and understanding how your behaviour impacts on the group and your environment. We also do, again, another one, a part of my remit is player engagement meetings. So I will go and visit the players. I think what had happened is a lot of people knew Kick It Out from Black History Month, when we used to wear, the players used to wear the T-shirts to warm up in, and that's all they knew. And there was a spell where a group of black players refused to wear the T-shirt because they felt that Kick It Out as an entity hadn't supported them as much as possibly we could have. So what we did was licked our wounds, thought about it, and this was before me, and put together a survey to send to all the players, all 4,500 pros, to talk about discrimination. For me, this was their opportunity to talk about discrimination in football, to talk about football, to talk about the abuse they get in football, to talk about, sanctions.
Yeah.
Are the sanctioning bodies doing the right job? Are the sanctions too harsh? Are they not harsh enough? Everything, and we sent it out to all 4,000 odd pros, and unfortunately only 200 took part.
Really?
So the survey became a consultation very quickly.
So do you think that racism is still prevalent within the football clubs? Not just the fans, but I mean, you've heard of instances in the past. There have been some very high-profile instances of players being accused of racist comments on the park, and there have been court cases and FA cases and all that kind of stuff. But do you think that still exists?
I think, without a doubt, it's still there.
Yes.
But it's not as overt anymore. Right. When I was playing, I can remember, being abused to my face.
Wow.
Crowds abusing you to your face. That doesn't happen anymore. It's a lot more covert. And by that I mean, fake accounts on social media. Yeah. That's how people do what they do. Yeah. Often it's about perception now. It really is. And so the problem with that is it becomes very difficult to actually pinpoint the perpetrators, because they're very well hidden. Yeah. And that makes our job a lot harder when it comes to actually tracking down these perpetrators.
And we'll talk about the app that you guys have got a little bit later on, because I think that's a fantastic piece of technology that you guys have put together. Okay, so where Muslim players are concerned, obviously, historically, Muslim parents don't want to push their children towards sport, because they don't really see it as a career. Do you see a change in the perceptions now that sport is actually a recognisable career and not something that's frowned upon as much?
Well, again, I think what does that is our role models. Because and along the line, from scholars to young pros to seasoned pros, because what that shows is that there is a pathway. Yeah. Now, with a lot of Muslim families, I hazard a guess, what I tend to think happens is the horror stories is what they've heard. Sure. And let's be honest, as any protective parent, you do not want your child to be exposed to that. Yeah. So, what I guess some will do is they'll say, no, we don't want you to play it because this is what I know of it. Yeah. Never really experiencing it, this is what I know of it. Now, the more players that people see that are Muslim, of all ages. I'm not just talking about your Mesut Ozils. I'm talking about your 16, 15, 14, 17-year-olds working their way through the system.
Absolutely.
The more positive stories they'll get, the more they'll be encouraged to actually let their children go and play.
Yeah. And clubs like Chelsea, obviously, they do the Asian Star project every year, which is clearly trying to show the kids that there is a pathway.
I think the good thing, what that does is it exposes the children to the environment, but hopefully it also exposes the parents to the environment.
Yeah.
So the parents can see and understand that actually it's a healthy environment for their child.
Yeah.
It's not one where there's a guarantee they're going to be a player.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that's made clear very, very early. But dip your toe in the water, see if it's something that you like, but then you have the choice.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, for some Muslim kids, there was no choice. You're not doing that, and that's it. And that was based on the fears of the parents, and also that's based on the environment they live in. You know, if they feel that they're intimidated because of who they are, because of their faith, then, you know, it stands to reason they will also, you know, be quite questioning of other environments.
Definitely. So we've educated the scholars.
Okay.
We've educated the parents.
Yeah.
How do we educate the higher echelons of the football club?
So, I mean, again, another part of my work and our work is delivering educational work to the managers and coaches.
Wow.
We have a good partnership with the League Managers Association, which took a while to get to, but what they've allowed us to do is to educate the managers. So we get in touch with the managers and go and visit them in their own environment and put on educational workshops, which so far have been quite successful. Managers have really taken to it. Again, you know, a lot of the managers are ex-players, like you said, come from a certain environment, so they consider, you know, they tend to think, when we talk about kick it out, they tend to think, well, it's about racism.
Yeah.
And once we've allayed their fears, number one, that it's not just about racism, number two, that I'm not here to expose them or tell them off or anything like that, we get down to business, which is about listening to people. I think the way to really get people to engage is actually to listen to what they've got to say first, without judgment. Yeah. So some people may say incredibly racist things without really being aware that it is. And it's not about us really pointing the finger, it's about us putting a mirror up in front and just making them aware, number one, of what it looks like, and number two, of the impact it could have on their environment.
How do we get more young black men and women into managerial roles? Because right now, we've got Chris Hughton, Marcus
Bignott, Keith Cole. Marcus Bignott at Grimsby, Keith Curler, Carlisle.
And now at Ware we have Anwar Uddin.
Anwar Uddin, yeah. Doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, he is.
Again, I think first of all we have to acknowledge that we've got a problem, and I think slowly we're beginning to acknowledge that there is a huge issue. Secondly, the application for managers, the appointment of managers must be a transparent process. Yeah. We live in a society where I think that football management is the only place where you could get sacked today and I could be installed within 24 hours with no formal process at all, or no transparent process. So you can see where the issues lie. Now, the statistics tell you 25% odds, maybe 25 to 30%, playing football, black and ethnic minorities. I think it's between 1% and 3% possibly that take up coaching roles. So you can see there is an issue. Now, I look at it this way. If I'm a chairman or a chief executive and I'm a white guy and I've got to that position of power, more often than not, I would be socialising with people that look like me. Right. I would be working with people that look like me. Now, where would I see a black and ethnic minority person in a position of management or power? Probably the guy owning the corner shop. That's about it. Yeah. When they were growing up. So now I've got to give my money to someone I've never really viewed as management material. Yeah. Because again, it's not something I've ever known. No. I've never been exposed to it. So what we want to try and do is expose these chief executives and coaches, chief executives and chairmen to black and ethnic minority people. Give them the opportunity to interview. Now, what may happen initially is you may have some resistant chairman who go, I'm never going to employ him, but I'll have to listen. Yeah. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that chairman's a businessman. Yeah. If the guy who sits in front of him really impresses him, you may do it through gritted teeth, but he will have to log him. Yeah. He will, because ultimately it's about what's best for the club. So, but that is not happening. That's for me. That was all I would want, because then, as a coach, it's now my ability to interview.
Yeah.
That's going to get me a job or not. If I know that, then that's fine. The way I look at it now is, management is not an equal opportunities employer. It really isn't.
No, it's not.
And we need to accept and acknowledge that is happening, and then we can start to do things about it.
Well, as you said, you're originally from Shepherd's Bush.
Yeah.
Now, there's a very well-known football team in Shepherd's Bush, Queen's Park Rangers, have a history of hiring, ethnically diverse. I know they've got Annie Zaidi on their coaching staff, and you've got Chris Ramsey and Les Ferdinand. What is it, because of the area that Queen's Park Rangers seems to have such a diverse,
of course,
program for recruitment?
Of course. I mean, as a kid, as a kid living in Shepherd's Bush, I trained at QPR. So I can remember training at QPR. Me and a good friend of mine. We went training. I ended up at Fulham. I was always going to end up at Fulham, but QPR was around the corner for me. I was a fan. Of course, I was going to go.
Yeah.
And the environment was such that, especially as it went on, for the mid to late 80s, that more and more black and ethnic minority players went. And then you've got, behind the scenes, you've got people like Paul Furlong, Paul Hall, Andrew Impey, who used to play, that have gone back to the club. So that tells you something about the way they've been treated at the club, that they're going to go back there and ply their trade there.
Same as at Chelsea, you've got people like Michael Dewberry and Eddie Newton well. But suddenly they're behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Why are they not up front?
Again,
because they're good enough.
Well, the problem is we're never given the opportunity to show whether we're good enough.
Yeah.
I tend to think, very few black and ethnic minority managers and coaches I know have got a job, failed, got a job, failed, got a job, failed, and still got another job.
Yeah.
I could probably
Chris Powell.
Yeah, well, ish.
Ish. Yeah. Absolutely. Ish.
There's some managers who have got a job, failed, and just continued that cycle.
Yeah.
I can think of probably four or five.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen for black and ethnic minority coaches because, and then people will say, and I've heard people say, well, there aren't many. I can remember speaking to a manager, a chief exec, and if your manager got the sack tomorrow, what's the process for you? And he said, well, I've got a pool of managers I think I'd pick from because of where we are, because of the timescale, and I understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
I need to get a manager in quickly.
Absolutely.
And I need this. I need him to hit the ground running. I haven't got the opportunity or the time to wait for him to flourish. So there's a pool of managers I'd probably pick from. And if one of them's not black, I can't do anything about that.
And there's a problem.
And that's where it is. It's because there is a reluctance to look away from this pool, which is why in football at the moment, the same people seem to be getting employed, whether they're good, bad or indifferent.
Yeah, because Alan Partridge will be back in a job soon.
No doubt. No, don't knock him.
No, I'm
love
not
him all
knocking
day
Alan.
long.
I know he's a Crystal Palace legend.
We'll have a roll around you and me.
Yeah,
he's all right.
He's
all
a Palace
right.
legend.
But you're exactly right. Yeah. He will come and get a job at some point, without a doubt. And there's a merry-go-round for some managers who seem to keep getting a job and failing and getting a job and failing. And there's a reluctance, like I said, to look beyond that. And that's why, if we could make the appointment situation more transparent, then and also, I'm an advocate for, if we can just have the managers being hired or fired in the summer.
Yeah.
Because then they've got to do their due diligence.
Absolutely.
And then what happens is you keep that manager. Because for me, a manager isn't about the good times.
No.
I'm telling you now, if your team's flying, everyone in this studio could manage, because there's very little you have to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's for when your team hits a bump in the road.
Yeah.
That for me is when a manager earns his money.
Absolutely.
Is to be able to get the team playing again, give them confidence, maybe change the tactics, maybe change personnel, and gel it all together and get it right. And that's what his job's about. But managers are sacked before they get the opportunity to do that.
Very much
so.
So 2017, kick it out. Moving forward, what have you guys got coming up, and what's in store that we can look out for?
Well, I think what we do, we have a focus for every year. Our focus for this season is a campaign called Call Full Time on Hate. And it sounds like it's about hate speech and hate talk. And it's actually about equality and diversity and promoting all aspects of equality and diversity and combating all aspects of discrimination. So we've got some films coming out, hopefully. Managers' film, fans' films. And we're really looking to highlight the issues of equality and diversity, and also just making people aware of how important it is, and how important it is for people to educate themselves. And if you consider, Brexit and Donald Trump and all that business, I think what that did, I'm going to sound a little bit controversial here, because I think it did us a favour, because what came out of the woodwork were people that were racist, without a doubt, that were hiding in the shadows.
Agree.
So what it told us in this country was that actually we've got a lot more work to do than you think. And so that's what we want to try and do. And we use football, because football is it really is.
Language,
it is. And hopefully if we can get our messages across in football, then hopefully people come away from football with more of an idea of how to behave and how to respond and react to racist incidents and discriminatory incidents on the whole.
And tell me a little bit about Click It Out, the app, because I know you can download the app now from the App Store and Android Store and Google Store and all that kind of stuff. So
the app is a fantastic tool. I think it's more than anything. I think it's a teaching tool. That's the way I look at it. Basically, what used to happen was if you saw an incident or whatever, it's very difficult to report it. Plus, you'd be a little bit afraid to report it, just in case. You're sitting in the stadium, and what would happen is you go to the steward will bring you back and go, which one was it? With this app, it gives you confidence, it gives you power also, because there's anonymity to it. You can put your name if you want, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. And the thing about it is you can download pictures and film.
Amazing.
And send it in. And also, you get responses, and you get the opportunity, hopefully, to be able to have faith in a system. So hopefully that something will happen. We can deal with the issues. And what tends to happen is the more people report, the more issues there are to deal with, the more we can implement change, put procedures in place to be able to work out the areas. So, for example, there may well be a certain aspect of a stadium where this is coming from. So what do we do about that? We can also work out whether what we're doing is right. But that only all works if people start to report. And what the app does is it encourages people. It doesn't force people, it encourages people, it gently encourages people to report, so that because they slowly begin to understand the importance of reporting and why it's needed. So that's what, I think there's loads of other things on it that can help to give you more of an idea of how to do things, of what discrimination is, of how to deal with it, of what we do to deal with it, and how to get in touch with us and how to come on board and work with us.
It is a fantastic app. I've been through it and I've seen it, and
I encourage the players whenever I go. I talk to players about reporting, and they sort of say, but it's hassle, isn't it? And I'm saying, no, it's not. No, it's not. We'll do all the hassle for you.
It's important.
It's hugely important. You report it, we'll try to do the rest.
Excellent. Well, but look, Paul, we're out of time. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Obviously, we'll give the details on the screen of the website and everything, but it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and working with Kick It Out yet again.
Thank you.
So a big thanks to Paul Mortimer from Kick It Out, and if you want more information, you can go to www.kickitout.org, and you can find out all the details about all the things that Paul has talked about, and get to download the app as well. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.